Hi everyone, my name is Christian and welcome to my podcast, The Game Is Gone. You might be wondering about the name. I've lost count of the amount of times I've heard somebody on site saying, get out while you can, or that the game is gone. Well, I'm looking to promote the industry in a positive light and speak to various guests who are passionate about their trade. I want to give people the platform to tell their story and discuss how the industry can improve, hopefully with a few funny stories along the way. I'd like to discuss how mental health can impact our working lives with the aim to help bridge some of the stigma that exists. I listen to a lot of podcasts myself. I think there's definitely a space for this podcast, but I'm just currently working out what that's going to look and sound like. Welcome to The Game Is Gone, and I hope you enjoy listening. Yes, lads, thank you very much for coming on my first episode of the podcast, The Game Is Gone. How are you both?
Yeah, all right, Christian, how are you? I'm good.
Yeah,
Yeah, all
good,
good,
good.
mate.
How's everything going?
Same old, nothing changes, mate.
But yeah, all right then. So if you wouldn't mind just introducing yourself, we'll start with you, Alex, and how you got into welding would be good.
Yeah, Alex, from Port Talbot, 34 years of age now. Got into welding when I was about 17. Yeah, my father got me an apprenticeship when I was down in the steelworks. I served my time with a company called Doosan Babcocks, which is probably one of the better apprenticeships out there that you can get. Yeah, it was really interesting. And from there on, and I got into the inspection game.
What about you, James?
Yeah, so I've been welding since I was about 14 years of age. Started off with my father. It was a good start, really, because it got me interested in welding in general. And then that resulted in an apprenticeship starting at 16. I'd done my time with a small firm in Pyle in Bridgend. I was with them for about 4 years, doing mainly structural and pipe work. Yeah, so it was a good start, really, to sort of bit of a kickstart, really, into hopefully a long career in inspection. Now we've moved on from welding.
Yeah, so you both kind of got in through family then, because it's not really pushed in schools, is it? Apprenticeships. It's not something they say, do you want to be a welder? It's always, do you want to go to university? And they never kind of push
Yeah.
you towards trades, do they?
No, absolutely not. Well, I went to college first. I done a year in Neath College. Started off with plumbing. Wasn't for me. I wanted to get out of there. Really didn't know where I was going until my dad said, look, get your head screwed on. If you want an apprenticeship and learn a proper trade, well, with the potential to earn good money for the rest of your life, then you just, you need to get onto this apprenticeship. And that's what I did then.
So
Yeah,
I'm pretty
obviously
much,
you have to stick on the low money for a few years, but once you actually go through the process of the apprenticeship, go through the college and the low money for a couple of years, obviously it's well worth it in the end, isn't it? And I feel like that's something that schools could help push forward, especially now with all the work coming up in the UK.
Yeah, absolutely. You're not going to go far wrong if you've got a trade behind you, especially with the way the industry is. I would like to say booming at the moment. Everybody's got a bit of everything going on. A lot of small factories and small fab shops. They got a lot of work. Obviously, Hinkley Point is kicking off. Sizewell is kicking off. Yeah, the industry is looking good. So now is the time for youngsters to get into the trade.
Yeah, definitely.
I think youngsters, they should be reminded of the fact that taking an apprenticeship is, I'm not going to necessarily say it's better than going to university, but obviously people that do take an apprenticeship are obviously earning while progressing their skills on the job. So I think people got to realise that obviously they're not going to be leaving school with big debts by taking an apprenticeship also, So I think that's definitely something to consider when you when you look at going into an apprenticeship, for sure.
The thing is, you can potentially leave an apprenticeship, say at 21, 22. You can be earning a tradesman wage as long as you're working in the right place, or as long as you've done a good enough apprenticeship.
Mhm.
And as you said, you leave with zero debts, paying back student finance for the next 10, 20 years or whatever. So look, it's a good route to go down, isn't it?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah,
100%.
absolutely.
So as much as people kind of slag it off, I would say, the game's gone, which is the name of the podcast, or I'd rather stack shelves in Tesco's than work for that rate. But I think the tide is turning now. You don't have to work for low wages. Like if you leave a job today, you could probably move into a job the next day. There's lots
Hmm.
of opportunity out there, isn't there?
There's still a lot of companies out there that try to penny pinch and not pay the appropriate rates and for the
100.
tradesman. You
Yeah, but
see, you see a lot of jobs which are, like you say, is better off pushing trolleys in Tesco's and going out your way
Yeah.
and performing a skill and potentially making the company a lot of money with your skills. So yeah, the money is there and it isn't there. If you chase the money, then you will get the money. If you're just local in a little fab shop, then yeah, I could imagine the money wouldn't be so great then.
yeah, but you've got to look also that a lot of companies will do that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of companies out there that will penny pinch and they don't value sometimes the sort of level of skill they got, and that's why a lot of companies have such a high turnover rate of men, because you know as well as I do, not many people are going to stay for a rubbish rate these days because there's so
No.
much work about. There's
The,
so
the
much
issue
demand.
is, yeah, the issue is when you see these same companies advertising for the same roles over and over and over, then either the rate is wrong or they're not a good
Yeah,
company to work for. Because if they're having men coming in and out of the door all the time, then they're not treating the men right or they're not paying enough. Because otherwise, you wouldn't have such a high turnover, would you?
It should be a
exactly.
set limit for a rate for a qualified tradesman in this, pipe fitters,
No.
riggers, welders. There should be a set amount for fab shops, for site work, for nuclear work, for offshore work. And then there's no quarrels, is there? You know what you're getting into then, and you know that the fab shop down the road is going to be on the same money as you.
I was going to say it's sort of similar there to, like the Blue Book rate, for example. Like that's a set rate. Say, for example, argument's sake, the steelworks. That is a set rate across, pretty much all of the companies that I'm aware of. You know what I mean? That is like a minimum sort of, rate that you're going to earn, which, like you just said, that should be like rolled out across every fab shop, and you should have a minimum earning for your skill. Is what I'm
Yeah,
trying to
no,
get at,
definitely. And depending on which environment you're working in, if you're like in a nice little fab shop, then yeah, it'll be a little bit less money than if you are out on site earning the money, because obviously on site it's not perfect. You can't turn a boiler upside down.
No, it
But
No.
it kind of works two ways, doesn't it? Because also the Blue Book, as you know, it's good. It has good points about it where you get travel, you get digs, but the
Yeah.
rate isn't high enough, I would say, because then
It's
the
not.
rate is designed to keep you working long hours and to keep you working weekends, because that's what they want you. They want you in working. If you just want to work a general sort of 40-hour week, it's not great. It's not great money, really, is it? And it pushes you to
No.
work more hours and to need to work those hours, which isn't good for a family life balance then.
you should be earning, maximum potential for minimum hours, really.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be living in work, but you find yourself living in work and you find yourself working 7 days and everything. But, that's quite normal in the industry, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is in this game, definitely.
It's an
Yeah. Okay.
expectation of most companies, isn't it, to work them hours
Yeah.
as well, also.
And then it's kind of that sort of they have this, well, if you're not going to work, you won't get asked next time. Well, that's not
Yeah.
always a fair way to look at things because we all have lives outside of work.
Yeah, of
Yeah, you got
course.
to find that balance and everything.
100%. Okay, Alex, so tell us a little bit more about your apprenticeship. How was that with Doosan?
Yeah, it was interesting. At a young age, got sent they got a training facility in Tipton in Birmingham. So it was a couple of weeks spent there at the time, and then a couple of weeks at a college in Leeds. There was a lot of boys with my, similar age to me, 18, 17-year-olds, who were in the same boat as me. It was pretty tough, getting up and go and leaving your family, leaving your girlfriend, your kids. But the rewards are worth it at the end. And everybody that was on the apprenticeship were in the same boat as me, so it made it that little bit better. And so yeah, it was interesting. It was an eye opener, and I think it got me to where I am today. Really, I don't feel shy away if I got to work away from home. I will, up and go and work anywhere I needed to be, anywhere in the world.
Good preparation for you, really, isn't it? Moving away at quite a young age, but it must have been quite a difficult decision to move away at that age as well, because you're still quite young then.
Yeah, I was 17. I think. Well, my girlfriend at the time, she was pregnant, so I had a child on the way when I was 18. It was tough, but that's all I could think about is, at the end, I'm going to get a trade out of this and I'm going to be potentially earning good money for the rest of my life and I'll be able to support my family. So yeah, it was difficult, but I had to do it.
Yeah. So what about you, James? I know you said you did your apprenticeship in a smaller firm. What about college? How did that work? Was that sort of
Yes.
did you do a City and Guilds and an NVQ? Is that what you did?
Yeah, so I done a City and Guilds, I done a national diploma.
Yeah.
I was on day release for 4 years really. And yeah, I enjoyed it, to be honest with you. I mean, it's quite tough when you're young, as you know yourself, when you're like 16 and 17. The last thing you want to be doing is going to college and bloody messing about with work, etc. But I suppose you just got to apply yourself and use your head. And like Alex said, you got to think of the end goal.
It
And I
makes
was
you grow
lucky.
up, doesn't it?
Oh,
And it makes you
definitely.
grow up really quick. Like,
I was lucky that the guys I was working with when I done my apprenticeship were all very experienced blokes. A lot of them were ex-barbies, welders. I mean, the platers we had were excellent, pipe fitters. I mean, they were all, you know, by even today's standards, they were excellent tradesmen. You know what I mean? So even though I done my time in the small firm, I still had a decent start off. Not as recognised as obviously Alex's apprenticeship, because he done his apprenticeship at probably one of the best firms in the country for
the end goal is the same though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, the end goal is definitely the same, and I mean that just goes to show the contrast between it doesn't necessarily have to do your apprenticeship with such a recognised firm, really, doesn't it? I mean,
no.
the end goal is still, like you say, is the same. I mean, we're both pretty much on the same sort of path, really, aren't we? So
Yeah.
Also, it's kind of in those little fab shops, it's the time that people spend with you. You know, the old welder in the corner who will spend a few hours with you and show you, how to put a route in, and the different welder over the other side of the shop will show you how to put a route in a different way. And then you kind of find your own path then, don't you? You find out what works for you and how is best for you, really.
Oh, definitely. I mean, you learn a lot of skills from the older people, and I think that's a key to success, really, because even like when you go to college and you go to like these training schools and stuff, there's only so much they can actually show you. You've got to actually, if you're learning from experienced blokes who've been in the game for like 30, 40 years, it makes a hell of a difference. You know what I mean? Hell of a difference.
Also, all the time in the world in college or in the training school doesn't prepare you for the real world. Is it? Once you go out and start, once you start doing sort of welding butts on site and in different positions.
Yeah.
So, how did you transition, Alex, from an apprentice to full time? Did you stay on with Barbies or?
No, I finished my time. I think I did a 3-year apprenticeship with Babcock's. At the time, then the first recession hit. I think it was back in 2009. So it was 2008, 2009.
Yeah.
At the time, a lot of people got laid off. Even with some Babcocks, as soon as I come out of my apprenticeship, I got laid off. I didn't take too long to find my next job, but it was different from what I was used to. It was in a fab shop. It was a lot of different exotic metals that I never welded before, and it was something I had to learn again. And basically, because each material is different to weld, it's a different technique for every little bit. But it was all experience gained, and I went from a fab shop, went to out on site, went to work in Cardiff on the docks, and I just gained little experiences in different industries, and along the way.
Didn't you go offshore for a while as well, or?
Sorry?
Did you go offshore for a while? Did you do a trip offshore?
Yeah, I think back in 2014 is something I just wanted to try, something I wanted to get into, really.
Yeah.
Tried it. It wasn't for me. It was too far away. Although you get the nice breaks every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
But it was a ridiculous travel, trying to go from South Wales all the way to Aberdeen up in Scotland is it's a 10, 11 hour trek, so it wasn't for me, but I tried it, I had to go, and that was
Look, every experience along the way helps you sort of prepare for where you end up, doesn't it? Whether it's, as you said,
it was because of offshore. It was because of offshore I got into the inspection game, because I met a gentleman there who's my inspector on the rig. And we got talking, obviously, and he gave me some tips, and asking me which way he was pointing me in the right direction that I wanted to go. Then, we got talking about the C-SWIP, and as soon as I finished the offshore, I went into my C-SWIP. Then.
Oh, good, James. What about you? What happened after you completed your apprenticeship?
Yeah, so the firm I done my time with, I ended up staying on with them for another 4 years. And then unfortunately, they went into liquidation back in 2014. So then obviously I left there, and pretty much the same as Alex, moved around different places for the next few years. Worked in quite a few fab shops, building mainly stuff for offshore oil and gas. Done a lot of like superheaters, heat exchangers for like power generation, etc. Yeah, so it was about, I think about 3 or 4 years ago now. It was one of the first times I met Alex, actually. I was quite interested in doing the sea strip. I was interested in sort of inspection side of things, and I remember Alex chirping onto me all the time to sort of sort myself out and bucket. And
Sounds
at
like
the time,
Alex had us, to be fair.
well, at the time, it was obviously quite a lot of money. It was, you know, you're talking like nearly $2,000, really, you know, to sort of book the course. And obviously, being self-funded, I was a bit hesitant at first, obviously, because if you fail it, it's a lot of money to throw away. But yeah, well, it was massive. It's played a massive part in my life now, obviously, because I've obviously come off the tools now, and been on the inspection now for about 2 years, 2.5 years. So it's, you know, it's definitely progressed my career. You know, just a small little thing like that can make such a massive difference. You don't think it at the time, and you don't think you're going to use it necessarily, you know, when you pass initially, but it,
Yeah.
you know, it does come into play later on for sure.
The thing is, it's the natural progression for a welder as well. You know, if you don't want to
Definitely.
be on the tools, kind of your options are inspection, or you can kind of go into the supervisory role. But you have to be a certain type of person to be a supervisor. You know, I don't think either of you boys would have made great supervisors. I think.
No, definitely
I just
not.
think you have to be a certain type of person, you know, whereas we would always have a laugh and a joke and, you know, have a good time. You have to be more serious. Well, I suppose you have to be serious to be an inspector as well, which is something you pick up over time, isn't it? It's a lot different to being on the tools and having a
Oh,
laugh,
yeah,
having a
definitely.
joke, you know, drilling people's boots to the floor and all that type of thing, you know. She certainly had a few times you come back and your boots are tied together or chucked over something, and you're like, oh, not again.
Yeah. There's definitely a lot more professionalism that comes with inspection for sure. I
Yeah,
mean,
that takes a bit of getting used to, you know. It
that
took me a couple of months to get used to. But yeah, so tell me a little bit about the ski script then, Al. You know, how that came about. I know you said you spoke to the guy, but did you self-fund that then?
Yeah, so as soon as I finished my time off on the rig, I filled out all my paperwork. I wasn't, you know, it was something I really wanted to do. So I did go out and self-funded it myself. But like James said, it's more, you know, it's nearly £2,000, and it's a lot of money out of your pocket. I did fail it the first time by a mark, which I was a bit gutted, but you know, you just got to push on, revise a little bit more, and then I passed it on my second time, and well, pretty much all the courses that I've sat since then, I've paid for myself. And the way I see it, like, it's investing in yourself and bettering yourself. I don't mind if a company wants to pay for my courses, but
No, of
that don't
course.
usually
Look, if
happen.
if 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 you want to get on and you want to do a bit, all right, say it's £2,000 and you take a week off work and you have to go up, but look, it's worth it in the end, isn't it? If
Yeah,
that's your end goal, you know, putting money into yourself is always good because you'll have people who sit there in the same job and say, oh yeah, the company are going to pay for my 3.1 in 12 months, you know, and then 12 months down the line they still haven't paid for it, you know.
yeah,
So
yeah,
sometimes you've got to just get up and do things yourself, haven't
yeah,
you?
and get it yourself. Yeah, it's the only way you're gonna get it, and guaranteed to get it.
Yeah.
I
What
think
about PCN calls? Have you lads done any PCN calls?
Yeah, after I done my C-SWIP, I went and sat my MPI. A few months after that, I went for the DPI. And just recently, myself and James, we went up to Sheffield and done the Radin turbine. So, yeah, we got a couple of qualifications behind us now. I think I'll be the end of it, mind, that these PCNs are a nightmare.
Yeah.
So, yeah, no more PCNs.
yeah, I think that's one thing that people don't anticipate. Like with these courses, they take a lot of commitment, you know, with regards to the revision and, you know, what you actually got to learn for the course itself. And you know, it's not an easy sort of. Don't be fooled into thinking that you're only doing a die pen or an MPI or even a rad interp, for example, because these courses are not easy to pass at all,
No.
and there's a lot of pressure when you go to do the course as well. So not trying to turn people off, obviously, but I'm just trying to highlight the fact that
real,
if you're gonna book a course like a C-SWIP or even a DIPEN or an MPI, you know, the tough courses, and you've got to put the hours in to revise for them. Otherwise,
Exactly,
you know,
especially if you're self-employed, you know, you have to take a week off work, you have to pay for a week in a hotel. Or like I was lucky when I did my C-SWIP, I was self-funded as well, but they do it in Port Talbot, so I travelled down to Port Talbot and stayed with my mother for a week. So saved me a couple of £100 on a hotel. But when I did my DPI as well, I did it up in Cambridge. You know, I had self-funded that, so I had to pay for nights in the hotel and everything else. You know, it's not cheap, is it, when you add everything up?
It's not cheap and it's not easy, and you got to put the effort in, 100%.
No, definitely. But look, so obviously you boys are both on Hinkley Point at the moment. Tell me a little bit about that. How's it going?
Nice. It's a massive, massive project. It's one of the biggest projects in Europe. It's a busy old place. Plenty with a lot of different nationalities on the job.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a pain in the ass to get to, because
Obviously you got the travel in and out, is it, on the buses?
traveling and out on the buses. You can't stay on the Hinkley campus, which is right next door to the site, but there's nothing around there. You know, there's no shops or town centres. You're literally confined to your work there. At least outside of the Hinkley, then you got your little, you know, the B&Bs, your hotels, your campuses, but then you've got to get the bus in every day, and it's you know, it's more or less a 40-minute bus ride every morning and 40 minutes bus ride on the way back to the bigger campus.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it. I mean, it's every day's a school day. I think there's so much going on there at the moment. Well, since I've started there within the last 9-10 months, it's getting so busy, and now there's so many different scopes of work on the go. Obviously, they've started now the mechanical stage slowly. So that's obviously causing a bit of a stir on site. There's a lot of activities going on in such a small space. So yeah, it's a daily challenge. Like Alex said, just getting to work can be a challenge. You know what I mean? But
once you're there, you're there. It's an interesting job. Don't get me wrong, and it is it's a huge, huge project, like one of the biggest projects. But yeah, every day's a challenge, isn't it?
Good to have the variety of work, though, isn't it? You know, on such a big site like that, it's not like when you're in a workshop and every day is a grind, welding the same thing, or you know, if you have that bit of variety, you're walking about site, you're meeting different people. Kind of great, then, isn't it?
Oh, it's definitely interesting from that perspective. I mean, it gives you an opportunity to meet new people and learn new things, because, like I say, there's a lot of things that happen on site there. I mean, well, as Alex probably tell you, 15 years, 18 years in the welding game, I've never seen some of the things that, are being built down there, for example. You know what I mean? There's a lot of complex structures and tanks and pipe work, etc. So it's definitely interesting, that's for sure. No job's the same job, that's for sure.
No.
How are you finding living away from home then, James?
To be honest with you, mate, I don't mind it. I mean, over the last, I don't know, say 10 years or so, I've done quite a lot of, away job during there. So it set me up really for this. I mean, obviously this is a long-term job and you're away from home for most of the week. And back on weekends, but after a couple of weeks you get used to it. I mean, it's no.
And we're not a million miles away, though,
really. No, I mean, luckily for us, we're only like an hour away from home, hour and a half away from home from a driving point of view. But I mean, there's a lot of boys that work with us, for example, that are travelling from like right up north, Scotland, etc. That's a fair old run, and I guess for them boys, it can be maybe a lot more of a daunting prospect to be here for potentially years on end, I guess. But each to their own. I mean, I'm happy enough here.
Yeah,
it's exciting as well for the industry to have such a boom. With this coming up, there's lots of other projects coming up as well. Sizewell probably within the next. Well, it's only going to help rates all across the board, isn't it? Because people, unless they start training a lot more apprentices or getting more men, then they're going to have to up rates, or they're going to have to give welders a better deal, I suppose, because we don't always get treated the best welders. You have to train for every job, go in, do your tests, and then, it's not always rewarding enough, is it?
No. I think the money will creep up. It is slowly creeping up, like on site and stuff. The boys have had a couple of pay rises since I've been there.
Yeah, no, that's good. You know, how many trades go in and do a test every time before they start? You know, it's a lot of pressure,
It's
isn't it?
not everyone.
Especially for young welders and you know people just come out with their apprenticeship or someone who's never been out and tested before. It's a tough old
Well, I
game,
tell you
isn't
something
it?
now. For a welder to be like on our part of our project and the PTLS,
Yeah,
if you for a welder to actually do a weld on site, you'd have to go
yeah,
to Bridgewater College and do a like a trade test.
yeah,
He'd have to do a coding when he gets on site, and
yeah.
then he will have to do a mock-up of the job before he starts welding the product itself. So it's 3 different tests just for a welder to start welding on the job. So for us, yeah, it's a lot harder. You know, I don't want to be like biased or anything, but I think a
Oh,
welder should be paid a substantial amount for his skill. Like,
exactly. What does a plater come in and do? Just bash his hammer on and make sure he can make enough noise,
he's
is it?
probably getting more or less the same money as us, bar
No,
the
look,
coding money.
obviously plating's is a very good trade as well, you know, especially some of the older blocks I used
But
to
not
work with.
everyone gets to do these trade tests before they get to start on the
No,
job.
yeah, look, that's the sort of point I was making as well. And you know,
I think
it's not easy, is it?
No,
I
not at
think
all.
with regards to the rates, they should really, look at the rates to sort of give youngsters the incentive to actually want to do an apprenticeship, especially like you say with size well and jobs like that
Yeah.
kicking off.
It
So
should definitely be addressed.
it should, I think with these projects in the UK, I think especially like Hinkley and Sizewell, UK labour should be the first, sort of thing to be dealt with, like with regards to, I mean, we should be looking to employ as many British people on these projects first before we
Of
maybe
course, yeah, but you
outsource
know,
foreign labour, and that's not always, able to be done because there's a lot of shortages of certain skills in this country where we would have to go and get trades from abroad, etc. But I think with obviously Sizewell and sites like that kicking off, I think it's a perfect opportunity now to sort of showcase welding and inspections and platers, whatever industry as such, to try and give people some sort of interest to actually get involved with it.
no,
Yeah.
exactly. But then, you know, at the same time, we've worked with some brilliant welders who've been abroad and I know from
Oh,
abroad, but
100%,
you know,
yeah,
they
definitely.
need to push it in schools and colleges and, you know, make it worthwhile for people to get into the industry and then, you know, that will lead
Exactly.
people moving on to kind of inspection and other parts then, you know. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's definitely what we need in this country.
100%.
There was one thing that I was going to ask you about. What's the canteen prices like on site? Because I've seen a lot about that lately. Like every post I see is
Uh,
canteen this and up in
it's
the
a sore
rates. So,
subject at the moment, I think, mate.
It is a
yeah,
sore
and
subject.
are
Yeah.
you boys part of the boycott or were you still eating it?
Yeah. Yeah, no, we haven't bothered. Well, I might have been in the canteen twice in the past, well, since before Christmas. So
Yeah,
we tend to bring our own food in now. Yeah, the prices just suddenly went up. Everything, it's not just the canteen prices, though, it's the prices on the campus, the parking, the food in the shop. Yeah,
is it
it's a
all
little
run
bit.
under one company or?
I believe
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Oh
Yeah,
God,
yeah.
yeah, it's just
So,
greed. They're giving you money with one hand and taking away with the other, basically.
well, I've been on this project for nearly 2.5 years now, and I think the prices on the campus has gone up 3 times since I've been here. Yet the
Mm.
wages haven't reflected
Haven't.
that then. No, not at all.
But also, it's not just, you know, there's lots of different people. What about cleaners and things who are working there? They might not be earning as good a wage as some of the mechanical boys, and you know, it's not fair on them, is it?
It's not fair on anybody that's on site, to be
Of course
honest.
not. Yeah,
Not,
no,
you
definitely.
know, but what can you do? They got you by the balls, let's just say, like,
Well,
what can you do?
actually, there is actually things you could do. Like, I think boycotting the canteen for a start is, just the start. But like, since before Christmas, where we haven't really bothered with the canteen so much. Our team, to be honest, I think I'm happier taking food in now than actually buying another
Yeah.
canteen, especially over the week. Like, you know what I mean? If you're going in there for something in the morning and something in the afternoon,
Yeah.
it don't take long for that to add up. You know what I mean?
No, absolutely not. The prices on coffees, you need a bloody loan to get one.
Yeah, you've always been a bit tight anyway, Alan.
To look after the pennies, isn't it?
You have, yeah, but no. So, what about kind of what's your guys' working pattern like at the moment? Then are you working sort of 5 days a week, or
Yeah, we just 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, which is great. Beats 7/12s any day.
God, yeah.
Yeah, we do work on the occasional weekend as well, which is like just part of like on the rota between our team.
Okay.
But yeah, the hours, you can't really complain on the hours. Half day finish on a Friday, which is lovely.
There's a lot of guys we work with on our team. Well, actually, not necessarily just our team, but across site that do a 10 and 4 rotation, and I think that suits a lot of people better that are coming from further afield, like up north, or you know what I mean, other parts of the country. You know, when you're traveling for 3, 4, 5, maybe 6 hours or more, you know that sort of 5-day week is sort of comes impossible really, because you're losing a day really either way in traveling. And so I think that sort of rotation makes sense for some people.
Yeah, so obviously good work-life balance then, because so many times when we were all working together, we'd be working 7/12s, we'd be working nights, 5, 6 weeks straight without a day off. And, it's exhausting in the end, isn't it? Obviously at the
Yeah.
time you get on with it, you get down, you weld the butt, you have a laugh, you kind of, it's enjoyable, isn't it, the shutdown, because you all have a laugh, so many of you, so many characters on site, and you always get the boys in that just come in for a week or two, and they got all the stories, and they don't really
Yeah,
care because they know it's just sort of semi time for them.
yeah,
But obviously it does get tiring and it's exhausting after a while.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, 7/12s. Who wants to work 7/12s? He's only doing it for one thing and one thing only, really.
Yeah,
But
cash, wasn't it? That's the only reason we
yeah,
used to work nights and
yeah, working stupid hours, like I said, 4 or 5 weeks at a time. Sometimes, like no days off. It'd absolutely ruin your body, wouldn't it? But
yeah,
now,
so
yeah,
obviously just the natural progression into inspection, and I've found the same for me. My work-life balance is so much better at the moment. I'm working 35-hour weeks. I don't really have to
yeah.
work much more than that. Maybe a few hours in the evenings now and again if we have something on. But
yeah,
I
it's a
mean,
lot more relaxed, like working in an office-based job.
not only that, I think by doing what we're doing now, I suppose it gives your body a break, because once you've been on the welding for so many years. I mean, like, I don't know if you were the same, Al and Chris, but when I started, the airfed was sort of still quite new on the scene, and I didn't have an airfed mask for the first 5 years of welding, and we were welding all sorts of stuff like bloody galv and paint and bloody other
yeah.
rubbish. And I mean, I think, you know, the lenses today are better on your eyes and whatever and whatever. So I think, like, welders today, compared to what we had maybe 10 or 15 years ago, are in a much better position for the physical health, for sure. Like, and I mean, all right, the hours, you've still got to work the hours, I guess, and most welders would work 10 and 12-hour shifts still, what I mean, for the money, obviously. But I think today, like, the equipment they've got, is much better on their body, for sure, than what we maybe had, like, 15, 20 odd years ago. Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the airfed coming in was probably the best thing, wasn't it? Because
100%.
such a good thing for your health. Shouldn't be breathing those fumes in. And once they made the decision that that was going to be law in the UK, then that's just brilliant for any welder, isn't it?
Well, like, I think any fab shop or any fab shop should have some sort of LEV, whether that's an airfed mask or, like a portable extraction fan of some
Well, you
sort.
have to have double extraction by law now, don't you? So you have to have like a
Yeah,
singular extraction and obviously your own welding airfed as well.
you'd be surprised how many companies are probably not following them rules, believe it or not. I could probably name quite a few off the top of my head here, but you know, um, the trouble is policing something like that, I guess. I mean, obviously a health and safety department, if you've got a decent health and safety department, they should be keeping on top of things like that. But most companies won't, because they won't want to spend the money on
No,
um,
exactly.
these things. You know what I mean? So I guess your own health and safety is down to you to an extent. But I think any company that you work for, where you weld in, especially exotic stainless steels, and if you're using a lot of stick welding or whatever, they should supply you with airfeds and the appropriate equipment to go with it.
And, companies have to treat people better now. Gone are the days where you'd be worried about your job if you didn't work a Saturday morning, or
Yeah,
and it used to be like that. You'd have the
it did
gaffers
used to
who'd be
be.
like, yeah, if you don't come in, then maybe you won't be coming in next week, and some
Well,
people
as you
can
know
only
yourself,
do.
we've had that a few times ourselves.
Yeah,
Right?
100%.
You
Half
go
the
with
time just say jam it, yeah, whatever.
yeah,
It is what it
yeah.
is.
Cut your nose to spite your face half the time.
The amount of times I probably said to when you boys, I'm going to jack now, I don't know, or whatever. It's a regular occurrence.
I've
But
heard them words a few times.
God, I know the amount of times you've probably said that over the years. But yeah. So what are you guys thinking? What's next for you two? Have you got anything else planned? Anything booked in?
Nothing booked as such yet. I think me and James are thinking about doing the 3.2 senior
Okay.
C-SWIP.
Yeah.
Definitely no more PCNs. That's
No, I just want to add this as well, like Alex saying there, with the PCN qualifications, for anyone that does potentially do, I don't know, MPI, DIPEN, etc. This passing the course is one thing, but if you're not doing these things regular, you've got to keep your logbooks up to date, and it's the same with the C-SWIP. You know what I mean? You've got to be doing these things, pretty regular to sort of keep your hours up, or get your experience filled up, or
Yeah, because
whatever.
for a level
Some
two, you
laps.
need to build the hours, don't you? So it's like, I
You
think it's
do,
4 months worth of hours, isn't it?
Yeah.
yeah, because like with the course me and Alex have done just recently, the rad interp, I think the hours are something like 1,000 hours, are they?
Yeah.
Thereabouts.
980, 1,000 hours. Yeah.
Like we're
But it's
really lucky. We do a lot of graph review where we are, you know what I mean? And there's so much X-raying and going on site. There's just so much potential to keep our logbooks up to date. It's great, you know what I mean? From that point
Yeah,
of view.
so tell me a little bit about the rad interp. How was that? Was it difficult? I know a lot of people say it is.
It's a tough course,
it's
very
tough. It's
course.
tough. You got to put the effort in on that one.
Okay.
Well, me and James, I don't know about James, but myself, I walked in there thinking the theory is the one I was going to concentrate more on.
Yeah.
But then when you're actually there doing the theory and the practical, I think on the day it was the practical which is more harder than the theory. That really drained me in the end. Is looking at that light for like 6 hours.
Yeah, but that's a lot to do with the time constraints they give you to actually review a graph. I mean, you're looking at 15 minutes to review a graph, and that's including doing the report as well, which is, when you're, under pressure and you sort of flick into a graph in 15 minutes and trying to draw out every defect. It can be really, really high pressure. You know what I mean? It's very difficult. Very difficult.
It was destroyed at the end of that course. Let's be honest with me. On the way home, it was mentally draining.
Where did you do that? Was it up at Lavenders or?
The Lavenders, yeah. We went up to Lavenders for a week. Was it a week? 10 days, I think.
How was that? Was it alright or?
It was hit and miss. I think we had a bad week. I think because we had our lecturer, if I remember correctly, was a guy who was meant to take us, but he was off with COVID. Then another lecturer was like doing a level 3 or something, so he was unavailable, or she. And then we had just a couple of tutors swapping back and forth all the time, so it wasn't really ideal. And it didn't feel like, it didn't feel like I was getting taught, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of questions. Sorry to cut in, Al, but there was a lot of questions. I want to say that Alex did ask, that they had difficulty answering at some stages as well.
Yeah, well, me and James, we before we even went on our rad course, we spent a lot of time, like an hour a night, and every night back to the campus. We get our books out, we have a bit of tea first, and then into one of the meeting rooms on the campus, and we'd be spending an hour there revising. So we put the effort in before we got on the course, which helped a lot for that week, because it was a crap week with lack of tutors in that week. So it was good that we put the effort in first.
You'd laugh this, right, Chris, but you'd be surprised how many people on the course have turned up and hadn't done any revision. And I was thinking to myself, you're in for a long week, like. You know what I mean? That's a lot to learn.
I'd be too anxious, I'd be looking at something for a good few months or weeks, because I wouldn't want to fail, I'd be embarrassed to fail, especially if I was self-funding. I wouldn't want to be paying to go up there again to do the test,
I want to say this, right? Every course I've done up to now, and I probably guess Alex would probably say, I put at least 2 months of revision in for it, because when you turn up that week to do the course, it is intense. You know what I mean? If you think you're going to turn up there and sit back and just do a couple of questions, do a couple of answers, and you're walking out to the pass, you're wrong massively
But
wrong.
also sort of self-funding, you're not going to want to fail. You're not going to want to pay again. I suppose some people, if their companies are paying, they probably don't care. But even still, if a company was paying for me, I wouldn't want to be
No,
going back saying I failed.
no, exactly. Yeah, it's exactly. You got that hanging over your shoulders and over your head.
Yeah, it's like when you dip a bet, isn't it? And you come into site and everyone's
Don't
calling a
know,
big
Christian.
dipper
I don't know what
over.
that is, man. I don't know
Yeah,
what that is.
you've dipped a few in my time. I've seen you dip a few. Don't worry.
Don't be like that.
But yeah, so do you obviously get to do a bit of rad into one site.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we are, because we're like in a client's position. Obviously,
Yeah.
the subcontractors will look at them first, all the films. The radiographers will look at them first, the company called Ocean Erin, then the subcontractor. Then it comes to us if we want to review, and then finally to the client himself. Then, so we only got to do like a percentage, really.
Yeah, but obviously it's good experience for you, because even if you've been on the course, you still want that sort of knowledge, don't you? And you want to be keeping up to date, and you want to be doing it just to make sure that you're keeping on top of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Going back to what we said earlier, though, that sort of thing you need to be doing regular, because it's keeping your hours up to date and keeping your logbook up to date. Because when you come to do your renewal, etc., you need to have that evidence to prove that you've actually been using the ticket. So it's definitely something to keep in mind if you're going to do a PCN qualification or any NDT, and even the C-SWIP. You've got to keep them books up to date. So
Yeah, so for anyone, say, listening or watching today, if they were looking to get on Hinkley Point, what direction would you point them in?
All depends what they want to do. Do they want to be a trade, or do they want to be in the inspection?
Say as a welder now, what would be your advice to a welder or an inspector looking to get on Hinkley? Because there must be people who, sometimes it's daunting when you've just come out of your time and you don't know many people, and you're thinking, well, how do I get on these jobs, and how do I get there? And then once you're actually on there, then it's easy enough once you start meeting people and making connections, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all about your network, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And not only that, I think experience as well. You've got to have a good industry, experience. You've got to know the basics, because you're not going to be able to jump into a job like Hinckley, for example, if you haven't got any sort of a good base of experience previously. I mean, because some of the, as Alex will tell you, some of the joints that we weld on there, they're quite complex, and they're not the sort of thing that you're going to be able to. You wouldn't understand the mechanics behind the welding of that joint unless you've had some experience prior to that,
Yeah. Okay. So obviously they can apply on the portal, isn't it? There's a Hinkley Point portal.
On a portal, LinkedIn is a good one. Indeed, there's plenty of jobs being advertised.
Obviously, LinkedIn's a good one for networking and keeping in touch with boys, isn't there? There's always jobs posted, and a lot of the time it's who you know as well. If you know someone who's in with one of the companies on there, then it's easier to get a start, isn't it? Because a lot of people take,
if you're a good
CVs can be
tradesman,
difficult to look at.
If you're a good tradesman, you'll have no issues in getting a start. You'd have your network, you know people, and it take one company to take a gamble on you, and then if you got the skill to do it, then you'd be flying then.
Because I've been to companies where they show like someone's CV comes in and it says on it that they're like a Nashville welder for wherever, and they can weld this, weld that. They come in and then they can't even weld a 2-inch pipe, So a lot of it just comes down to the test day as well, doesn't it?
Believe you me, we've met a few of them like that as well.
God, yeah, I can imagine.
So it's not a lot. They're not all superstars on this job.
No, they can't all be sort of mirror welders and whatever else you see flying about half the time, isn't it? Which always makes me laugh.
I think a lot of you could argue your last weld is, defines you, I guess. So, I mean, if you're always quite, particular about things, and, you make sure you do a good job on every job you do, I think that goes a long way as well, especially if you're sort of looking to get recommended by someone you maybe know, if you've always been, keen and, just all round good welder, does help. And I think your reputation definitely stays with you for sure.
Yeah.
When's the last time you struck an arc, James? Because I don't think I've struck an arc in probably just over a year now, I would say.
Believe it or not, I done a bit of welding back about a month back, I think, for my father, but I haven't actually done a butt for probably, I want to say about 18 months. You
I
know,
bet
a
that welding was
proper.
rough, was it?
Still got it, but don't worry.
What
You're
about
still
you,
pulling
Rob?
out the bag.
When was the last time you welded? It must have been even longer.
Oh God, I say it's got to be coming up to 5 years now. Nearly, I would say it's got
Has
to
it
be.
been that long? Yeah.
Well, it must be. Yeah,
Oh,
I think so. I think they've been on here for 2.5 years, and then doing a bit of quality inspections and NDT for skeletons for about 18 months to 2 years. So yeah,
you
more or
did some
less
of the
coming up to
rope.
five
You
years.
did the ropes for a while as well, didn't you? How was
Rope
that?
access as well, yeah, rope access and NDT. Oh God, it's got to be close to 5 years now. I would have thought.
Look, I
But
think
it's like
if you
riding
were
a
back,
bike, don't I?
if someone put you back in a bay for a day and you did a little bit of practice on a TIG, it
Yeah.
definitely, you'd pick it back up. But do any of you miss welding at all then? Because it's not something I've really missed so far.
I get the odd day, and I think especially when you're looking at the really shit work, and
Yeah.
you could do a better fucking job, even though you're not welded for 5 years. And yeah, then I
Yeah.
think, oh, give me that TIG set, I'll sort it out. But other than that, no, not really. I've never looked back.
Yeah, even when you're working in these places like the steelworks and it's rough and it's dirty, some of the older welders, some of the welders you meet are so good, they just have
Mm,
a lot of pride in their work, clean everything off, chip everything down. And then sometimes you look at this nuclear standard work and it's not always made up to be, is it?
no,
Man,
no.
you've got, I mean, how can I explain it? A weld can maybe not look the best, but the integrity of the weld is still good enough to pass the spec. So, I
Yeah, of
mean,
course.
that's obviously a tough one. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Once you're a welder and you know what a good weld looks like, and you see some of the welds that maybe potentially you put down on some jobs, it does make you think sometimes. I'm not going to
Every
say
welder
anything.
should be his own inspector anyway,
Hundred
They
Yeah,
should
percent.
be, they should,
take a
and
bit of pride in your work.
when they offer something up to the inspection, they should be ready because I know myself, don't get me wrong, I messed up lots of wells all the time, but I would have tried to fix them before offering out to inspector. When he's not
Yeah.
looking, get the grinder in there, clean it up, make it look neat, go over the cap or, whatever you do to make a weld look all right.
Yeah, exactly.
Um,
You got to take
but
pride in your work.
say you was to give somebody a little bit of advice who was coming into the industry, what would that be? Take pride in your work or,
Always have a tin of
100%.
paint in your bag.
yeah, that's one that used to come around a lot.
Or a pot of grease. One of the. Nah,
No, just
I will.
take your time, take a bit of
Yeah.
pride in your work. At the end, like James said, your last weld is what defines you. You're only as good as your last butt.
Mm.
Thing is, it's a
I think
small game as well. People talk and, people always say, oh, I
Oh,
worked with him
it's a
here or I've
small
worked with this. So
game.
it's,
It's a small
once you're in
game.
that circle and you start meeting people and networking, as we said, LinkedIn's great for that, keeping up in touch with people. Then, you see jobs coming up and wherever.
yeah, and I think especially for the younger people that maybe potentially coming into the game, I think if you're keen and you're willing to, stick at it and keep your head down and just, get on with your job or whatever and do the best you possibly can. I think, progression wise, there's a lot of opportunities, isn't there? And especially with all the stuff that's kicking off in the country at the moment with regards to like nuclear and, big projects starting, and it's probably going to be a lot more to follow with it. I think now is a perfect opportunity for youngsters to, start an apprenticeship or whatever, whether that's in welding or fabricating or anything really for that matter.
To ask you, so a lot of the time now in the companies we're in, there's a lot about mental health and whatnot, because that's not something we often come across, was it? Maybe towards the end of the time we were at Skelton's, remember when they used to give us time out breaks and you could go for a cup of tea, but that's sort of coming into the industry a lot now, isn't it?
Mental health plays a big part now. Yeah, you got to have that work and life balance. So now it's no good working 7/12s and affecting your mental health and having breakdowns and stuff like that.
It's as important as the physical health, really, isn't it? Because, if you're not right and you're working away from home and you're working long hours, it can be so hard on times, can't it?
Mm.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah,
I
you
think
see
it's a
it all
fine
over the site,
balance, isn't
really.
it? Yeah,
Does your company offer a lot of things as well now? Because we have a lot of things on our online portal, and we have lots of links we can follow and lots of numbers we can call.
Yeah, we get a lot. We got mental health buddies on site. You can just
Yeah.
go up and have a little chat with them in the office. We got Hinkley Health on site as well, which is like basically like a hospital to itself, really. You can go in there and have a chat to people. There's phone lines to ring up. Yeah, it's good. It's good the way they do it now, and it's a good thing that it's getting recognised now, and not just like, oh, just get on with it sort of thing. Like,
No, it is,
health
because
is,
you find that a lot of people would just kind of, instead of speaking up or talking, they would kind of use alcohol or whatever to cover that. People would come in, and it's because a lot of the time, you're not always coping with it. It can be difficult, can't it?
yeah,
It's a fine
definitely.
balance, I think, isn't it? It's a stressful job and it's a physical job as well, whether that's welding or inspection. So, I mean, you've just got to know your boundaries, and you can't let yourself get things on top of you. You just got to try and sort of balance things out. And if you do need help, there's always someone there that will help you.
You couldn't really speak about it. If you'd gone in and said, my mental health's not good, I need a day off, you would have been laughed out of the office. Whereas now, people have to listen, don't they?
There's
Yeah,
definitely a lot
yeah,
more taken
yeah.
seriously these days, for sure.
No, and it could be because the amount of men that kind of suffer in silence and the amount of young men who kind of take their own lives and whatnot, it is so important.
100%.
Even though
100%.
we all have a
And
laugh and a joke on site, it's kind of, but it still is serious as well, isn't it?
everybody's different, mate, and some people deal with things differently to other people, don't they? So like, whereas maybe, if I was feeling something, I'd come and have a quick chat with you. Other people will hold it in, and it'll get on top of them, and it'll get too much, and unfortunately, but bad things happen that way, don't they? So it's always good to have that option of being able to speak to someone on site, or whatever, if you need to.
Well, we're going to be wrapping it up soon, but there's one thing I wanted to ask you. Alex, I wanted you to give me one funny story that comes up top of your head if I was to ask you now.
I tell you one that I just thought of, and I remember in our last place where we all worked together, when it was somebody's birthday, and what did we used to do on people's birthdays? And I remember one time it was Christian's birthday, and I think I still got a video of this. I think I still got a video of this when he was sat there having a little breakfast, Chris, and up comes the pipe from behind you through the window, bang, straight down the face.
I was smelling the cheese all day there. I think, it was just disgusting, and it was all over me as well. Even after I had a shower, I could still smell it.
He was a cracker, though. You dared to tell any of the boys it was your birthday, like.
Oh no, that was kind of
some cheese all over you.
that went on for a few years after, didn't it? But
yeah,
I actually forgot about that. But
stories like
what about you, James? Anything you can think of off the top of your head?
No, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. If we're
I
going to
can give
stick
you
along the
one
same sort of line.
when I was
Go
thinking
on.
about it earlier, right? I don't know if obviously you can both remember Bamper, or Josh, his name was.
Yeah, Josh.
So I'd only been here for about 3 weeks, and he was always funny. He used to have such a laugh with him. Well, at the time, we used to get a text message through with our wages from whoever we were working with. So I was still young. I was still young and green, and he was complaining about his wage from the week before. So I said to one of the boys, "Give me his number, and I'll text him." So I can't remember exact figures, but I texted him something like, "Your top line is 1,200, and your take home is 400." Oh my God, he went absolutely nuts. He hit the wall. He started shouting and screaming, and we were all sitting outside in the smoking area. And he started banging, "That's it, I'm going up. I'm going to see him. I'm done. I'm never working here ever again." And I was going to let him go, but one of the boys went and chased him and grabbed him just before he went into the office, because he was just about to go in both battles and tell everyone he was finishing. But we laughed about that for ages afterwards. And he's always a good crack, Josh, as well, wasn't he? One of the funniest
Bamper's a legend in the game. He is a legend in the game.
So is there anything you can think of, James? Or if not, we'll probably call it a day.
I don't know, to be honest, off the top of my head. I don't know. I got so many stories. It's like difficult to pull
clean, though, yeah. Clean.
You were always the one with the fart spray, James. Whenever I'd be welding, and all of a sudden,
Chris,
I could just
you
smell
could
it.
say nothing. I'll never forget those bloody sweets you bought. Remember
Oh, yeah.
the what were they?
Sweets, wasn't
Arch
it?
flavored, cheese flavored, and when I give them out to all the engineers.
Yes, they were giving them to the scaffolders and whatever, weren't you? So they were going to fill him in at one point.
Hey, what about when we used to mess about the Roy Williams? And we put engineer's blue on his hard hat, and he went into Tata Steel for a meeting. Come out, he looking like a Smurf, man.
He's threatening to sack everyone, wasn't he? But no,
Was you there when we put the bunting under his van?
that was before my time, I think.
And he was on the motorway. You come in the morning, he said, right, own up, who put the bunting under my van? It was 40 meters and 50 meters of bunting on the M4. The police pulled me over. I'm going to sack someone.
Oh.
God. No, we had some good laughs when we was on the
No, we
tools,
did, and
to be honest, you're not going to get a better laugh than what we did with the boys at Skelton Thomas. Like,
look, I think that's how they kept everyone there for so long. You know, obviously the money was okay, but I really enjoyed working in. I've never quite had a job as fun as that since I left. You know, no matter where I've been, has been okay.
It's full of character, isn't it?
God. Yeah, well, thank you very much, guys, for sharing your stories. It's been good to catch up as well. It's been quite a while since I've seen both of you, but yeah, thank you very much for coming on, and I'm going to try and do a few more episodes, and I'm going to try and get a few varied guests on. So, been speaking to a few people on LinkedIn and have a few more booked in over the next couple of weeks, and then hopefully going to start releasing them week by week then.
Yeah, no problem, Chris. It's been it's been fun. It's been good.
Absolute pleasure as always, lads. Have a good one, and I'll catch up with you soon, all right?
Yeah, see you soon, Chris.
Yeah,
take it easy.
Nice one, lads.
Bye.
Bye.